I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes. Like a doll's eyes.
I love this town!
Hello, city.
Hello, citizens, and welcome to City of Geek podcast, episode 5.
Hello, citizens.
I don't know, something. A city filled with people.
Sure,
4 of us.
Sure. We're in a city.
We're in a city.
So
we're in a City of Geeks, so
we are the City of Geeks.
We're talking about our favorite childhood movies and kind of everything that goes along with that. Today is just me, Bob.
And Kim.
And Cody is not with us today. Unfortunately, he's unable to make today's episode recording. He's still with us, and he's gonna be back next time. We do hope.
Hanging out in graveyards somewhere.
Not 6 feet under.
Not 6 feet under.
Just hanging out in graveyards. So in which we're gonna talk about our favorite childhood movies and how that relates to everything. And before we get into that, I wanted to see what your thoughts were generally of what we're considering childhood compared to anything else. Is there?
I think I'm thinking more specifically because my family definitely had a very loose definition of what a childhood movie could be. There's a reason I saw Friday the 13th for the first time when I was like 7. So I'm thinking movies that are geared children and family primarily, ones that are not necessarily ones that you watch as a child, even though we watched some fairly, I don't know. I watched some fairly inappropriate things when I was a kid.
One of my notes or questions to ask later on was about like things that you did watch too early that you probably shouldn't have watched until you were older.
What is too early?
Well, it's like what Mitch Hedberg said, any book is a child's book if the children knows how to read.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, funnily enough, when it comes to answering that question, I was going to bring up that my wife had read The Color Purple at 6. It's like one of the first novels she read, a little bit too early. And if we wanted to get into anything about books or television, we have that option.
We have options.
Yeah.
Cool. But I'll let you stick. I'm going to try to not derail like I am very good at doing. I'm going to let you stick to your list of questions and answer in an orderly manner, as orderly as I'm capable of being.
But just going back to the first question we were talking about of like where childhood goes into this, because I was when I was approaching this, I was trying to think of where that line changes for me, because it's more of like what I was watching as a kid and what I watched over and over again. The VHSs I watched a lot because we are both in our 30s compared to.
Are we? Bob, how dare you?
It sucks that we don't have Cody here because since Cody is 10 years younger than us, so what movies that he might have gone to as a child might be different than what we did, because we're the same
Cody
age.
is a lad of 15 because we are. I am barely at now.
Yes, we are 29 continually.
Yeah.
It's like, how long have you been 15?
More years than I'm willing to admit. Well, I think the idea of what you'd watch over and over. I also, for me, there is that element of what used to air on television over and over.
That's definitely on my thoughts.
Because there was some movies that. Tremors always comes to mind. Yeah. I watched Tremors so many times growing up, and even though it's it's horror, but it's
horror light.
It's horror light. It is family friendly horror. It's maybe not something you should have seen when you were like 6, 7.
Came out in 1990, so when you're.
Oh no, so I had to have been at least. I was like 10, probably the first time I saw it.
I remember the first time I saw it came on ABC. As a movie of the week that week, and my friends and I all happened to watch it. Coincidentally, the next day we were all talking about the Worm movie that we had just watched.
Because it's not gory.
No.
Any of the effects, it's mostly with the tremors, with the worms that you see them getting gooey and gross. But it's not a particularly bloody movie. It's not a particularly graphic movie. It is. I don't know if I think
it's PG-13.
Probably PG-13, mostly
Maybe
for language,
PG,
though.
Yeah.
Because edited for television, it's easily PG. And so that was something that, even though I don't know that it would be considered a kid movie, it's not. It's like a late kid movie. It's something you'd watch again when you're like 10, 11, 12 pretty safely. And I wouldn't feel weird about showing that to any of my friends' kids who are around that age. Yeah. But looking at strictly like kid movies, If are we jumping into that?
No,
or
it's whatever age, like, because I think most of my list is PG-13 that weren't directly like kids movies.
Yeah.
Like even like the first movie, like the very first VHS that I owned, that was like, well, I'm pretty sure I had, I know I had some that I got as gifts, got as this that were. The first thing I remember someone handing me one saying "This is yours" was for the movie on the back of my phone case, which I'm showing to Kim here, Ghostbusters 2.
Oh.
I must have worn out that VHS. I had a neighbor who got a copy of it that she gave to me that had like Coca-Cola on it, and occasionally it popped up, "This is property of Coca-Cola, no copying, no sharing."
Oh, wow.
There were various scenes, and I don't know how she got it was around the same time it came out in VHS, so
right?
It wasn't
Yeah.
Here's this movie in theaters, not like that.
Yeah.
But that was a VHS I still own. Probably the only one I've owned from that long. It's in a box upstairs at my house, and I watched the movie over and over. I actually, because of that, I probably like Ghostbusters 2 more like Ghostbusters 1, even though I know Ghostbusters 1 is a much, much better movie.
But sometimes it's what you see first, too. Like, I have a weird affection for Short Circuit 2 because I saw Short Circuit 2 before I saw Short Circuit 1.
I've only seen the second one because that one used to play on TV all the time, too.
It did, yeah. And I think we taped it off TV, so I used to watch it all the time. As a kid, I used to watch it because it is, again, there's some language stuff, but most of the jokes that aren't appropriate for kids go over their heads.
Exactly.
So any of the really inappropriate stuff, in retrospect, it is horribly racist.
Likely. I don't remember much of it. I haven't seen it probably since 1993.
Mostly in the casting, because they have what's his name playing.
They have like a white guy playing Asian,
playing the Indian character. But you don't. I mean, it's sad to say you didn't think that at the time. I think when I was a kid, I think I didn't know. I didn't know he was white. I was, I was like, again, I was probably 8 or 9 when I first saw it, and it didn't click with me. And it wasn't until I was older, and I think I caught it on TV, I was like, that doesn't work. That's inappropriate.
But is that one, like, if my memory serves me of being slightly more kid-friendly, but you think because of the robot and the first one kind of, like, working that way, that the series maybe became more friendly for families over time, like kind of the difference to going from Terminator 1 to Terminator 4.
Yeah, well, and
there's other movies that did that too, where like the sequels are more kid friendly because
that was their demographic. One, I also feel like you have to look at time period because I remember watching movies, like one of my first VHS tapes I remember having that was not taped off TV, but I had one called The 3 Lives of Thomasina. And it was a Disney movie from probably the 50s maybe. And it was about this girl and her cat. And same thing with like Darby O'Gill and the Little People. Some of these older Disney movies have some really like scary stuff in them.
Which is fine. Kids are going to take that.
Kids can take
kids
that.
Kids like darker stuff, and that's what Neil Gaiman's talking about all the time with Coraline. People were saying, "What are you making this for kids?" Like, because it is for kids.
But I feel like there's been a shift. Like, I feel like kids of our generation were really hardcore with that. But as you start to get into kids more of Cody's generation and above, you saw a shift away from some of these darker movies because a lot of the Pixar stuff, a lot of the Disney stuff, I mean, Hunchback of Notre Dame, like, they went as dark as they could and kept it a Disney movie without...
The gypsy will fuck me or I will kill her.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
Sorry, I shouldn't say the G word. The Romani woman will fuck me or I'll kill her.
I mean, but the Hellfire song, like, that's dark, and it's
been 90s, 95,
very
96,
sexual. Right? So, like, for kids who were our age and watching that, like, I saw that in theaters, it was intense. But there's been, I feel like, more of a shift away from that kind of, again, that adult tone to a movie. Not that, and I think you're starting to see it swing back. Yeah. Because you have a lot of now people of our generation who are having kids and making movies for the kids and wanting them to enjoy. And that's why we're seeing, like, I mean, another movie that I was obsessed with as a child, The Dark Crystal.
Yes.
That movie... was maybe one of my favorite films when I was younger, and I'd never get tired of watching. I have it on DVD because I will occasionally pop it out, and they're making a sequel to it, or prequel, something. Like They're making something to it, And so you're seeing this, it's not just the nostalgia. I think it's this, we grew up with this kind of movie, and we turned out well enough.
Yeah, 80s fantasy was a lot darker, and a lot of 80s kids
Yes.
fantasy. Get that. Labyrinth is still pretty light, but still has some elements in there. Black Cauldron.
Black Cauldron, yeah.
A whole bunch of like the 80s is nothing.
Secret of
so much-
Nim.
Yes, exactly.
Not Dark Crystal, Last Unicorn.
Oh yes, I still haven't seen that. I need to watch it.
I have it on, remind me, I'll give it to you before you leave. I have it on DVD.
Only if I have a VHS of that sitting around my house.
I had it taped off TV, and as an adult, I bought it because it's another one that when I'm watching my friends' kids, I have a handful of movies that I watched as a kid, and I'm like, look at this thing, and they like it. I had a whole conversation with my friend's 6-year-old about the Red Bull because she found the Red Bull very scary.
Is there something in Last Unicorn?
In The Last Unicorn. For those of you who are familiar with The Last Unicorn, you know you'll understand. Like, the Red Bull is creepy. He is scary. As a monster, he's very scary. And she got really frightened of him, and it led to this whole conversation about reality versus fiction and storytelling and real monsters, and it's an animated movie. I'm like, it can't hurt you because it's a cartoon. There's not really a Red Bull that's going to chase you into the ocean. Spoiler alert. It's okay. You know that within the first few minutes of the movie, you know what's going on. So, I do think it's too bad that when I was 5 and 6, I was watching things like that. Last Unicorn, The Dark Crystal.
Your parent section, they show you Watership Down.
Yeah.
Oh, look at the bunnies.
But there's bunnies.
Here's this and the Plague Dogs. Here, I have enough like Richard Adams, dark stuff.
Like, some of my friends' kids at that age, they're watching lots of the Barbie direct to, Sophia the First still. These very, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think having exposure to darker themes younger helps you, because it doesn't mean you don't have those emotions when you're a kid. Having an outlet for that and growing an appreciation for more mature themes. Like, kids are smarter than we give them credit for.
Yeah, and learning that stuff before the world smacks you with it.
Exactly.
Like, that's why we used to have the fairy tales.
Mm-hmm. Which
Grimm's
is dark
Brothers
shit.
Stuff, which over time were edited out, bowdlerized a little bit, but you still have that, and now, of course, that's also swinging back. But no, this is the real Grimm's fairy tales.
Yeah.
This is the real story. This is the real thing for that. Or Roald Dahl just turning all that on the side, too.
Roald Dahl, you have to appreciate whoever edited his books, because he was a horrible human being and he hated children. And the stuff he wrote was actually really they weren't meant to be kids' books. But whoever, I don't know, his editor or somebody who read one of the first ones he did was like, if we change all these, you could market this to kids. But
yeah, he has a very cynical worldview.
Yeah.
I read Matilda recently, and
how did it hold up? I haven't read it since I was a kid.
It's approaching it in that way, but it's fine. Like, what's funny, I think it's most well known now for being the movie and it's being readapted by Netflix here soon, along with a bunch of his other works. I think it's funny with that because it's so anti-filmed.
Yeah.
It's anti anything but book, and it's well known for being a really good movie.
Yeah.
It's really well made from Danny DeVito.
And Rhea Perlman.
And I think he directed it too.
I didn't realize that.
He made War of the Roses, also everything he's done. And he directed Death Smoochie as well. So he's directed a lot of dark comedies.
That's kind of his wheelhouse. I think it helps, like, the stuff that's really adult, the kids aren't going to understand. And so, I think about, we may have talked about this before, The Giver.
Yeah.
There was stuff in there I didn't get until I read it again older. And you develop a new appreciation for it, but it doesn't mean you didn't love it and enjoy it when you were a kid. There's just a nuance you're going to understand as you get older. Like, I haven't rewatched The Dark Crystal in a while, and I'm looking forward to rewatching it before the new whatever it is, series, movie, whatever is coming out, to kind of see how I look at it differently. Because
there's things that not saying adult humor, more just more adult themes.
Adult themes,
that
yeah.
You don't know as a kid that in a well-made product can go to both levels. Like, I hate when people are like, "Oh, I don't watch kids movies, I don't watch animation, I don't watch Pixar." It's like, have you never seen a Pixar movie?
Yeah.
Besides Cars, which is a whole different thing, usually they're about sorts of crises that people are going through, like Up and everything went on with him and
Oh.
Ellie, and but
Up made me
they
cry.
made everyone cry. If you didn't cry, you don't have a heart.
You don't have a soul, yeah.
Or
In and Out-
the
or,
Toy Story movies are all it's so much about existentialism, and
Yeah?
like
What?
they're approaching their own death in part 3, and then they get rescued. But
I just watched, I just saw the new Wreck-It Ralph movie.
I haven't seen it yet, so don't spoil.
I won't spoil it, but man, it hits. There's a lot of... It's a kid's movie, but it's not a kid's movie.
So it's not the Emoji Movie with a Disney sheen.
No!
'Cause the plot seemed kind of similar.
It's really, really not. If anything, it's a show, or it's a movie that I think anyone who has a child, especially a child who's getting older, should go watch, because a lot of it is about being able to not exclusively a child, but there is this kind of idea of letting go, that you need to let somebody go and be who they are, and it's not a bad thing.
Yes. That's often a theme of Pixar. I can't think of the top of my head, but
like Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
has a very similar element to it. And so the Muppet Show. I mean, the Muppet Show was something that adults would watch and get some of the innuendo, some of the more adult jokes, but kids watched it because it was fun, and there's puppets and chickens, and
you distract him with this, and you throw this other stuff. Like I was, a lot of the jokes. Last time I watched the Muppet Show was about 5-6 years ago, but they're just simply references that you want to get. Like I was thinking of all the dancing sequences where you just throwing back one-liners at each other, but it's like. Do you like Kipling? I don't know. I never have.
Yeah.
That's not a dirty joke. Of course, it could be if you look at Kipling that way. But it's more about the writer. But the kid's not going to know who Brother Kipling is.
No. The Looney Tunes used to be the same way. They would be covering material that they have the whole Barber of Seville spoof that they do. Like, a little kid isn't going to understand the reference necessarily, but then later on they're going to hear the melody and recognize it.
I know it first from this kid.
Oops, Matilda came to visit. They did a spoof on the Scarlet Pimpernel, which is a book about the French Revolution. Like, it's awesome. It's planting these seeds. What?
When Animaniacs did that a lot.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite shows. Well, it came out in like 93, so when I was like 12 or 11, but there's a whole Apocalypse Now episode and they always do Dennis Hopper in there. It's like, hey man, gonna freak out when he sees you, man. And it's like, later on I watched Apocalypse Now when I was older. I'm like, I remember that from Animaniacs, and then I went back and watched that episode, but that was nothing but sort of so many that stuff from Warner Brothers has references and jokes and impersonations for people that adults know if they're for some reason they're watching the show, but you have adults writing it and smart adults writing it
who are going to want to slip those things in.
Fingerprints.
Yeah. I used to watch, I believe there's Incoming Cats. Hello. I used to really like the show Wishbone.
I remember watching that. Yeah,
it was cute, and they did all of the little dog was dressed up, and they put him in the books, and I was a little older, I think, when it was on, but I still enjoyed it, and part of it was that I would sometimes find the books that they were talking about. I'm like, that sounds like a cool book. I'm gonna go look for it, and I'd go to the library and get that book.
And then after 40 pages, like, this is really big for me. But no, that's
I was reading
what it is.
I was gonna say I was reading stuff pretty advanced by that age. So yeah.
And but even then, I read a lot of the classic illustrated versions, which they cut it down to that, added like a photo every few
abridged
pages.
or whatever. Yeah.
Which then later on I read the real versions, but he said the gist of the whole story.
Oh yeah, it's all about introducing. I think. Because even, I've bought for my nephew some, like, little silly Shakespeare books that it's obviously not the text of Shakespeare. But it's some of it's using his stuff for counting, and some of it is just basically the story with some pretty pictures. But you're introducing them to these concepts, and you're introducing them to this so that they, as they get older, they're like, I remember this. Now I want to read more. Now I want to see more. And I think that's a good thing. It's encouraging curiosity. It's encouraging a desire to, particularly classics. There's a reason a lot of these classics are classic.
Going back to everything there, if you were to just go to 9-year-old Kim and say, what's your favorite movie? What would 9-year-old Kim answer?
9-year-old Kim would have been firmly in her phase of the summer she spent watching Charlie and the Chocolate Factory every day. I was
Willy Wonka.
Willy Wonka, yeah. I'm thinking about and I think about the book too because I read the books first. I read all of the Roald Dahl books when I was little. I was obsessed with Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I was absolutely I could recite the whole thing, and I spent a summer. We got an hour and a half. Do it. Start making me sing, and that's never a good thing. We taped it off TV, which is most of our collection of movies were stuff we taped off TV because VHSs used to be expensive.
Yeah. But you get the EP ones, and you save like 3 movies in a row.
Yeah, exactly.
Half my collection when I was a kid was just that, and some of my friends just have the wall of VHS tapes of stuff that they taped off of stuff. And then when you watch the real version later on, I was like, that looks different. Like with Willy Wonka, there's a couple scenes that cheer up Charlie, and there's something with the computer yelling at people. That's I never saw until I watched it on DVD. I'm like,
because they edit for talent. Because it's a long movie. But I also enjoyed the vintage commercials. But there was also, at 9-year-old Kim, there was a lot of awesome made-for-TV movies that were happening. Like, there was a version of Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, with Carol Channing?
And that had the Jabberwocky in it.
That scared the hell out of me as a kid.
And I loved it! But it was one of the few kid versions that had the Jabberwock. Like, a lot of them cut him out. The Disney version doesn't have it. And so I'd obsessively watch that on VHS.
I had the one DVD if you want to watch it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen that in years. I'd love to.
I'll bring it by next time.
Nice.
But I remember seeing that one on TV, and then there's a scene in which she opens the door and there's the Jabberwock there, and just scared the shit out of me. I had nightmares for like weeks. Because
I remember him, and again, I haven't seen him, so I remember as a monster him being absolutely terrifying.
It's not as much as an adult, but I can see why young me got upset. Like, the last episode, which we were talking about, are non-Halloween movies.
Right.
We talked about Garfield's Adventures, and I watched it, on Halloween, and we were watching, and Allison's like, "Yep," it gets to the pirate goes to the end. It's like, I see why you were scared as a kid, because until then, it's like it says something like the last minute and a half, but the first 20 minutes is goofy, and there's just one sequence.
But it's funny the way little things... Because part of what I vividly remember is it would storm. Like, every time he appeared, it got, like, dark, and it felt like there was wind blowing, and that's scary as a little kid. There was the Boogedy movies, which I think we talked about briefly in one of our podcasts. Those had run on... it was Boogedy and Bride of Boogedy.
Yeah, they play on Disney.
Yeah, Fuzz Bucket. They had all these like hour long, maybe they were 2 hours long, but I feel like they weren't a full 2 hours, specials, Sunday night movies, and I loved them. Fuzz Bucket. I loved Fuzz Bucket. I think I went through a period of naming all my stuffed animals Fuzz Bucket. Escape to Witch Mountain.
I remember watching that a bunch as a kid.
Apple Dumpling Gang. Like,
that was always on TV, but I never saw it.
I never liked that one as much. I was Darby O'Gill and the Little People. That was one of my like vintage Disney go-tos, because you had the Leprechaun King, because the whole thing is that Darby O'Gill has the Leprechaun King and he captures the Leprechaun King. A very young Sean Connery, but the Banshee. There's a banshee in it, and it's terrifying. And it was, and it was Ghost Story. It was a ghost story. You had that supernatural element, but I loved a lot of the vintage Disney movies, the movies from like the 60s and 70s.
There's a certain feel to those, and my list doesn't have a lot of those on there. In fact, I even noted that I watched a lot of Disney movies, but none of them were like my favorite like rewatches over and over again. Like, that wasn't the VHS that we had. Like, we had a couple here and there, but most of ours were more of the Spielberg, Goonies, Indiana Jones,
E.T. kind of thing too.
Of course, I still haven't watched E.T.
You still haven't watched E.T.
But it arrived from Netflix yesterday.
Okay.
I'm watching it this weekend.
Okay.
It would be a childhood favorite if I probably watched it then, right?
The Indiana Jones ones, that's a good example again of ones that were. I watched those a lot as a kid, and they are for the most part pretty family friendly. Because even the Indy's romances are more kind of suggestive as opposed to being
because he kiss and they fall asleep.
Yeah.
It's hinted that like the line in Last Crusade where he said, "Well, Dad, how do you know she was Nazi? She talks in her sleep."
Yeah.
I always until as an adult I took that as, or until as a teenager I took it as they were all in the same room because they're traveling together.
Right.
Not that she was sleeping with both of them.
And it's that, and that's just it. If a kid's not going to get the line, then it's fine. They're not gonna be scarred by some of that stuff.
Maybe Donovan turning old real second, or everyone melting, but that stuff. Even then, it's like it's quick, it's light, and I think half the time I watched these the first time was with my parents.
Yeah,
so they knew what was coming, or knew certain things I might not be able to handle as a young kid. But then again, as I said before, my mom always was clear over what's fake, what's real. We talked about how movies were made, so I never had that much like. Even as a kid, I wasn't completely nightmare filled. Even if I just mentioned Alice in Wonderland giving me nightmares as a kid, but for the most part, like stuff like that didn't bother me. It was cool to watch, and Indiana Jones were made for like in the style of like the 12-year-olds going to the movies in the 40s and watching the serials that later watched on Mystery Science, then they ripped.
Yeah, exactly. One that I watched. I remember, I think my brother got it for a birthday party or something, and so it was maybe, the first time I saw it, I didn't appreciate a bunch of the jokes or the references, and I was a few years older when I saw it again, and I did, was the Bill and Ted movies.
Yes, those are amazing. And they hold up, too. They're
fun.
They are smart, stupid movies.
Yeah. Again, when I first saw it, I was a little young to understand some of the history stuff, but they hold up. They're fun. And again, language is the big thing with a lot of those movies. There might be a little bit of questionable language, just a little. I remember watching. I was addicted for a while to the old Zorro TV show.
Cool.
Because the Disney Channel ran it.
Yeah, Disney played it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that one of their treasure collections is the Zorro show. I think they made it.
Yeah, and I used to, again, I think some of it was, if I'd be at my grandparents' house, my mom's parents had Disney Channel, so there was a lot of stuff I'd see at their house. Like I loved the book Treasure Island when I was little. And I watched the Disney adaptation, which I liked, but it wasn't like the book. And there's a Charlton Heston, it's like a 2-part miniseries that aired on TV or something. Maybe it was just 1 part, anyway. Of Treasure Island. And I loved it because it was really accurate to the book. And so when I was around 9 or 10, that's when I started noticing, like, this is not like the book. And wanting,
everyone's a critic, even on your.
I would gravitate towards, because I first read Pride and Prejudice when I was probably 12 or so, and when I'd seen the old version of it from, I don't know, the 1940s.
There's one every like 3 years.
Yeah, but and it was fine, but it wasn't like the book. And when the BBC did their like 6-hour Colin Firth version of it, I was obsessed with it as an early teenager because it was so accurate to the book. So I went through this weird period where I got real judgy of movies and their adaptions if they gravitated too far from the novel or the source material. I've kind of gotten past that. I care less now than I did when I was a teenager.
You see how structure works and how things move.
Exactly. There's a reason why. I mean, you can't release a 6-hour miniseries to movie theaters. So, like, that's never going to happen.
They can try. No.
They can try. They can't try. That's the whole ring cycle in opera hasn't. So they don't do it that often for that very reason. You are just living your best life, Miss Matilda. This is she's enjoying being the podcast cat. Yes, but she is named after the book.
Oh.
Yeah. What about you? What was 9-year-old Bob watching that he couldn't get enough of.
Well, besides Ghostbusters 2.
Besides Ghostbusters 2.
It was so much of two things. The first, besides that being Batman, the Tim Burton one from 1989.
Oh, all right.
That was something that we also wore out many tapes on. Watched again and again. My friends and I actually filmed our own little 20-minute version of it.
Nice.
In my friend's basement. So there's a lot of my photos and stuff from my childhood are long gone, but if I can find it, there is makeup as me as the Joker.
Nice.
Even as a kid doing bad Jack Nicholson impersonations. There's a name for my pain. That name is Batman. That sounded more like Dan Crawford just doing his hop earlier. I can do a decent Jack. I probably won't come out right now because it's being recorded.
So we're going to find a time to release it, maybe to our YouTube station. Can you do your full Jack Nicholson makeup job as well? Perhaps. If we ever start a Patreon account, then that can be something we send out to the Patreon people.
Redo my Jack Nicholson makeup 30 years later.
Yes, and I will do my rendition of I Want It Now, complete with a goose that lays golden eggs.
Goose.
I want a goose that lays golden eggs, Daddy. No.
I sing that song all the time.
Yeah.
At the house, from whatever reason, it's this saying I want to do this, and then it goes into I want the world, I want the whole world. But yeah, we watched Batman so much. Batman Returns is still my favorite Batman movie. I don't know if so much that's nostalgia, so much of that is simply of when I watched it. Because I watched Batman Returns again a few weeks ago.
Right.
And they still hold up. I still love the hell out of them. And that's also movies that were parents were like, that's too dark, and McDonald's said that's too dark, so that's why we end up getting a more kid-friendly version in Forever and Batman and Robin, which came out to me after the cusp of going from childhood favorites to teenager movies. Which I wanted to bring up there when I bring that up earlier was I kind of see two movies as moving from childhood movies to one that gets things moving. It's kind of there's movies that come out after it that I still feel are childhood movies.
Right.
And then there's a second movie kind of just completely goes in the deep end of adulthood. Not adulthood, but teenagerness and not a kid movie. I think Jurassic Park came out when I was 12.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where things started moving. I don't consider Jurassic Park a childhood movie, though it's still one of my favorite movies of all time. And I watch it all the time as a teenager, watch it all the time as an adult.
Yeah,
but I don't see it in the same way as... Say, The Sandlot came out that same summer. Actually, 1 month before Jurassic Park. But I see The Sandlot as a kid movie I watched a lot. And Jurassic Park is not, even though they came out a month apart.
But the themes in them are very different.
Oh, yes.
And and Jurassic Park, again, is especially for a kid, it's a scary movie. Mm-hmm. You've got things chasing you. You've got monsters. You've got... I always think of the scene... where they're going down, is it into the generator or whatever, and she finds the
Samuel
arm.
Jackson's
and she's like, oh, thank God. And she pulls and it's his arm, and that really stuck with me.
And was Jeff Goldblum shirtless?
Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum shirtless is always in fashion, always in style, always appropriate.
Now, when DC and Marvel eventually become one thing, we can have Jason Momoa and Jeff Goldblum in the same movie.
I think that movie would implode from sheer sexiness. It would not know what to do with itself. Because I'm sorry, I don't care. He's getting older. He's still sexy. It's still.
Who doesn't love Jeff Goldblum? We all.
Right. And I appreciate a guy who's not afraid to make fun of himself and not take himself too seriously. And I enjoy the kind of spoofs on himself that he does.
Jeff Goldblum is best being Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah. This should be another episode of the podcast. Actors who have transcended character, who now just play themselves.
Him and Harrison Ford and a couple other people.
Pacino, De Niro, Brando at one point, for better or worse. We should put that on our list. That might actually be kind of an interesting conversation. No, I think, there's movies I watched that, I watched Red Dawn a lot when I was a kid.
It's a little darker than you expect.
Not because I actually wanted to watch it, but because sometimes my brother had control of the television.
Is your brother older or younger?
He's older than me. He's 2 years older than me.
Definitely.
And him and my dad both like war movies, both like, my my mother, my brother, and I have a deep appreciation for natural disaster movies. My mom and my brother liked a lot of the action stuff that I didn't really get an appreciation for until I was a little older. Like, I didn't see Die Hard until I was an adult.
Wow.
And my mom and my brother loved it. It never appealed to me. And some of that was that I preferred horror. If I was going to do something that was more adult, it tended to be horror. And so action movies seemed boring to me. And I have more of an appreciation for them now and the fun that they can be. But
and the 80s was the best time for action movies. Yes, maybe. Yeah. I'm not a big action movie fan. I find a lot of them to be the same gripes that people give against our genre of the same thing over and over again.
Exactly.
With, like, this cheap, put it out there and call it a day. You know, so many Steven Seagal movies that can only take so many.
With CGI now becoming so prevalent in these movies too, I find them even less interesting because it distracts me.
Yeah, it's like that's a blue screen and a wire.
Yeah, and you can see it. Like,
compared to Die Hard, which was all practical. Red Dawn and all the stuff from that era. Then that's a lot
Predator.
Yes, exactly.
And that was one of the few that Predator and Terminator 2 were two of the Dan movies. That's what I used to call them. But they were two of the, because my brother's name is Dan, if y'all haven't figured that out. It were two of the Dan movies that I really liked. And in retrospect, I think it's because those were also the two that had stronger genre elements. Like,
I consider Predator into or adjacent to horror.
To horror, yeah. And I think I didn't even realize
it often gets into the conversation. People talk about it in horror conventions and in horror topics. But I interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No, but I think even without realizing it when I was a kid, that was what I was grasping onto with those movies. That, like, they were close enough to horror, they're in the family. And even Terminator 2, you have all those sci-fi elements. You've got Terminator 1 I never liked as much, partially because this is kind of funny. It bugged me that Arnold Schwarzenegger was the bad guy in Terminator 1. Like, it really bothered me as a child.
Because culturally, he's the good guy.
He's the good guy, and so...
And you don't need Terminator 1 to get Terminator 2.
No, you
don't.
But
that's not how well of a sequel it is, that you don't need the first movie.
Yeah.
Because it's a completely different type of movie. The first movie is essentially a stock slash.
Yeah.
And the second one is a full-bore action science fiction film.
And the first movie... Because when did the first one come out?
84.
It was 84. And so I saw it probably for the first time when it had run somewhere. We had it on, I think, on VHS. I probably saw it for the first time when I was maybe, again, like 7. And it really distressed me. It gave me a lot of anxiety watching it. It was too intense when I was a kid. And so I didn't like watching it for that reason, where the second one... You have Arnold the hero. You have this almost the hero isn't man. He's the machine. And the
biggest hero of that, who's not a robot, is Sarah Connor, who's absolutely kick-ass.
Who's a badass woman.
And when you watch the first one, after watching the second one, she's just brought along by Kyle Reese. She's
the damsel, yeah. And that probably had a lot to do with it too, because I even think about a lot of the horror that I gravitated towards when I was a kid, and I liked stuff with the final girls. I liked stuff where you had these very strong women. I like that even in a conversation about childhood movies, we're getting into horror. But to be fair, for us, those were childhood movies.
I'm purposely moving away from that on my list, but it's definitely something I watched a lot.
Yeah.
It wasn't the stuff I watched over and over again, because they did a little bit freak out, but not completely,
Oh, I was... I
watched the USA version.
It was well, that's just it. They were watered down, and I do recall after a Friday the 13th marathon when we were still at our old house. So again, I was probably 8 or 9, and waking my mom up and making her tuck me in, even though it was like 2 a.m. In the summertime, we didn't have bedtimes. For those of you who are judging right now, it's not like we had anywhere to go the next day.
I just remember once when I was watching Carrie on TNT or something, and my parents said, "No, it's time for bed." I'm like, "No, there's a half hour left of the movie. Like, the big part's coming up." And they're like, "No, you have to go to bed. You have to go to bed." So like, I just stood at their door banging on. It's like, "Can I watch Carrie? Can I watch Carrie? Can I watch?" Until they let me watch the last. Yeah, eventually. Nice. So I missed a good 10 minutes just annoying them until they let me watch the rest of Carrie.
Well, I got into Twin Peaks when it first aired. I watched it the original run. And I started watching it because one night, I used to do this. If I had trouble sleeping, my parents would fall asleep watching TV. And so I'd sneak into, they had this little like love seat at the end of their bed. So I would go under it and watch TV for a while. If I had trouble falling, I would just like crawl in the room. Usually they'd already fallen asleep because I could hear them snoring. So I knew it was okay. And they'd been watching Twin Peaks, and I'd snuck in the room and started watching it, and I got invested in it. So when they got into the show and started taping it, they used to watch it later, but I kept wanting to watch it with them, and they were like, is this too scary? And I'm like, since when are you actually regulating what I watch? And hence I started watching Twin Peaks at probably an inappropriate age. And it scared the shit out of me. But that was why I liked it.
There's a lot of imagery in there.
The imagery was terrifying.
I never watched Twin Peaks as a kid, though I knew about it culturally.
Right.
But what I remember most about Twin Peaks is the Sesame Street parody of it.
Yes. But see, again, that's good children's programming. Because they're parroting something that the kids aren't going to get the parody. But the adults who have to watch Sesame Street over again are going to see that and be like, that's brilliant. Thank you. I almost feel like some of that, it's a nod to the adults who have to sit through children's stuff.
Exactly.
It's that we understand and we're with you.
We're not going to make a stupid, dumb stuff, and so you hate watching the same cartoon over and over again.
Yeah.
And I really hope when I'm a parent that whatever I'll be watching will be good stuff that I wouldn't mind watching over and over again. Maybe just, all right, you can only watch these things, right? Of course, then again, it was a little easier to keep track of what kids are watching back then.
Because you had control.
Everything.
Yeah.
And you're talking about, like, watching the same things on TV over and over again every time they were on.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder about this generation with that of, do they have that option? Like they have streaming, they have this. Are they just going to just flip through channels one day and find Jurassic Park on television? Of course, everyone knows Jurassic Park is.
Right.
But batteries not included, which I watched all the time as a kid on TV.
Yeah.
Like, there's more Spielberg produced in this case. Like, I think half my list is Steven Spielberg. Because it was the 80s.
Well, and he produced stuff that was, not exclusively, but a lot of stuff that was in that kind of family-friendly or at least family-appropriate.
Like the Goonies.
Huge
generation. Back to the Future he produced, which
I
is still
Back
a perfect
to the
movie.
Future!
Perfect movie.
Oh!
And that, if I'm not holding up, that holds up to a T.
Yeah. There was I just lost it. What was it? Crap. Oh.
I have no idea. Yeah. But it's still cultural. Like, people still talk about it.
Yeah.
Continually. Like, it's something that people show their kids and they look forward to showing their kids.
Yeah.
And this going to the next generation because it's a
timeless
movie. There isn't too much in it that says 80s. Of course, it's it takes place in the 50s, so that takes place a lot of that.
Right.
But there isn't a lot of, like, direct 80s references.
Yeah.
That you aren't going to get. Everything that you would just immediately pushes off, like Jaws 19 and stuff like that, or the new version of 2015 that we didn't get.
Right.
Obviously. But ignoring that, you still have a lot of fantastic sequences, great characters, great writing, and it holds up time after time after time after time.
When you have the jokes that land with the kids, Biff, with all, calling someone, was it Butthead? Butthead all the time. That used to make me laugh like nobody's business when I was a kid. And you have the jokes that the parents are going to laugh at. And so you have a very nice blend of the little bit more infantile humor that kids like poop jokes, fart jokes. They like bad names. That he called someone butthead. That's so funny. He called you a butt. Like they kids like that stuff. I mean, they just do. Burps, things that, and then you have the jokes that the parents are going to appreciate and like. Although another one that I watched as a kid, but really isn't a kid's movie, is Stand By Me.
Yeah, that's on my list too.
Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting one because, I mean, most of our generation, I think, watched it as a kid.
They played it on TBS or TNT all the time.
But even though there's kids in it, it is not a kid's movie. It's really not. I mean, not in the sense of like...
There's still that spirit of adventure and being like a 12-year-old going on something.
Right. I would say like tweens maybe.
There's stuff you can relate to, but as an adult, you see like where like the the family life in these kids. And
Yeah.
You see where they're broken, and you see where they're heading, and see what happens with them. It makes it all that much more powerful and sad.
Yeah.
Because I just rewatched it again for the Stephen King panel at
Oh,
CryptoCon.
right, yeah.
And it's also a perfect movie, TM. That I don't think there's anything wrong with the film.
Right.
But it is, it's accessible to a child watching it as a spirit of adventure, and then accessible as an adult of reminiscing over that, and also
It was the Wonder
seeing
Years.
the bigger world. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never really watched Wonder Years, but I know it was out there.
My folks liked it. My dad, well, because and again, my folks were from that time to an extent. There was a lot of shows that they'd watch because nostalgia for them. So anything that took place in the 50s or the 60s, a lot of times we'd watch. Matilda, can we not walk on the keyboard, please?
Yeah. Oh.
Nope.
Yeah. That's silly.
She likes you. It's really that's pretty good.
And since I'm doing this one mostly unedited, she's putting me right in there.
Yeah, well, it's, you know what?
Right up as it is.
She can be our mascot. But it's the same nostalgia factor, I think, for our parents. My dad talked about the music all the time. He loved Wonder Years because of the music that they'd play.
So my
on
dad's
it.
a big fan of American Graffiti.
Yeah. Oh, American Graffiti. Yeah.
Of course, it came out when he was like our age or younger. But,
Yeah.
but there's still only jump back like 15 years, but it's enough.
Right. Yeah. Another one that I keep losing my movies because I'm getting distracted. By the fluffy shenanigans that's hanging out on our table right now. It's a kid's movie that I never, I watched it a lot as a kid, but I was never super into, was The Wizard of Oz. That one was never gelled with me the way a lot of other movies do. I was fine with it, but I don't know why I never really connected to it.
I don't think we had a copy of it. I watched it when it was on TV, but...
Yeah.
And that was always an event when it was on television.
Yeah, The Wizard of Oz is playing. When I will say, I still have cable, partially because, like what you were talking about earlier, I really like, particularly around the holidays, Halloween and Christmas, flipping through the stations to see what's on. Because you have lots of movies playing. Christmas movies, Halloween movies, just movies. Because you're getting into winter months, people want to sit in and watch a movie. And
so a lot of the best and the favorites will come back out.
Exactly.
There's certain movies that you're flipping through and they're on, okay, I'm not
I
going anywhere for
will
hours.
stop on this channel. I will still do that with Tremors. If Tremors is on, I have to watch that movie.
I'm the same thing with Jurassic Park. It's on TV.
It's now
I have it on Blu-ray, have it in 4K.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still going to watch it again.
The Halloween movies, I love the Halloween movies. Every time I find them on, I will stop and rewatch them. Or have it on in the background. But I really I also sort of miss, the 80s had a lot more specials. You had a lot more Christmas specials. I mean, we were the California Raisins Christmas, the Claymation Christmas. It's ridiculous, but I love it so much. And it was a special thing. A Garfield Christmas was a special thing. A Charlie Brown Christmas. There's a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving thing that hasn't held up quite as much to me. But even I remember the 2-part Christmas episode of a very special episode of Saved by the Bell.
Good old 80s and 90s with their very special episodes.
They're very special episodes, but they were... I was obsessed with these, and I was heartbroken when they stopped airing, and now I think they're streaming. There was the original Rugrats Christmas, Doug's Christmas, and the Hey Arnold.
Time. And Rugrats did Hanukkah, and they did
all that. But the very first Rugrats Christmas, where with Angelica selling the twins, each of them trading for the
the Magi style.
Yeah, and Chucky being afraid of Santa, as you should be, and Angelica then becoming obsessed with the fact that she was going to make the naughty list. That is Christmas. That used to bring me so much joy watching. And don't you do it, Matilda? Don't you do it? Don't you do it? She's like, what did I do? But I miss that. I feel like we don't have, you have Christmas episodes of things, but you don't have the kind of idea of the special, the Christmas special, the Christmas
And I can stream it, you can just watch it, yeah.
Yeah.
I bought a bunch of the specials last year on DVD because I knew that we wouldn't be able to watch them.
Yeah, and I miss that. I miss television events a little. I feel like they've tried to do it with the musicals, the live television event of this musical, but
Grease and Hairspray and the Rocky Horror remake, which wasn't live,
but was not good either. So there was that, and in general, they've not been super great. I think the ones that have tried to do it in front of a live studio audience have been more successful.
Yeah, the energy.
Yeah, well, because that's just it. Theater is meant to be performed in front of people and not in front of cameras. You lose some of the magic. But the I don't know, the live event has kind of gone away. They still happen. You get the music events sometimes, but I miss that. I miss the special. Yeah, because I feel like that was a fun thing even as a kid. I used to look forward to those kinds of things. There's this special thing on television tonight. The Wonderful World of Disney. What's it going to be this week? I miss that. I think you lose that a little with being able to binge and stream. Anticipation.
Yeah, because you have to wait.
You have to wait.
To come back around.
Yes.
Or tape it off the TV. You still got the TV edits, but you still got to... But you can't just, like, put it in, you're done.
Yeah.
Or flip around or have everything there. Like, I worked at Blockbuster forever. And
yeah.
I loved it. Like, and a lot of the movies post Jurassic Park that I loved were because I now had full access to the video store. Because there's one about a mile from my house. And
nice.
Around that time is when my parents let me go rent what you want. Where I ended up finding a lot of the stuff that some people would have on their list. Like Princess Bride, I didn't see until... after the mid-90s. Actually, here's something weird. I didn't see Star Wars till after Jurassic Park.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't see it till probably around that time because when I jumped in, that's when now moving into sorts of things that... So I don't have that part of Star Wars, but when I got into it, I got into huge... Well, you know.
I do.
Yes. 25 years later, here we are, and it's still everything that I do.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't see... the original Star Wars, or I saw that the least. They used to air Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi on TV all the time. They didn't air the original one quite as often. And so I saw that one the least. I remember rewatching it as an adult because I barely remembered details from it. And again, I never got into Star Wars the way a lot of people did.
Or people like me, right?
well, I mean, not like my nerddom went in other directions. And when I was a little younger too, I liked a little bit more of the fantasy. I liked the animated Hobbit. That was weird and creepy.
I didn't see that until around Lord of the Rings came out.
Yeah.
So I went back and seeked out the other ones.
Secrets of NIMH was huge for me. And again, you had Mrs. Depending on which version, if you know the book or the movie, Mrs. Frisbee or Mrs. Brisby.
Yeah. I've read and seen both. So.
Yeah. I mixed them up because I've read and all the weird sequels that... Yeah, anyway.
Never watched Timmy to the Rescue.
No, but there's books written by...
Okay, the sequel books.
The sequel books, but they weren't written by her. They were written by someone. I don't remember if it was one of her kids or someone associated with her. And they're fine. The sequel books are fine. They're not as good. But I did like the expansion on mythology a little bit, just because I was really talking animals. I was really into talking animals, but I was never as into I liked Disney movies. I liked Disney cartoons. But that, for the most part, was not what I was watching obsessively.
Yeah, I think for Disney movies, I was one and dones for a lot of them. I watched them, and that was just about it, unless it came up at a friend's house.
Yeah.
Then I went, I want to watch Sleeping Beauty, which actually I didn't see until last year. But
oh, wow.
Which I didn't realize that until I was watching Sleeping Beauty with Allison at Cinerama for the 70mm film festival.
Right.
And I'm thinking, all right, I've known this, and it was playing. I'm like, I've never seen this. But I guess I've seen a lot of it separately.
Yeah. You see pieces of things. Yeah.
I never actually just
sat down
it.
and.
It's the same thing with E.T., which of course I will fix this weekend.
Yeah, you will.
Hopefully soon.
I hated The Little Mermaid. I saw it in theaters. Didn't super love it then. And I grew to hate it more. And I directed it for one of the youth theaters I worked at a couple years ago. And I got to kind of put my own spin on it, which I appreciated. But I hate the message of it, and I still do. There's nothing against the production values or the music or anything. Well, I hate the song Part of Your World. Beauty and the Beast, that was the one that I liked the most. Partially because Belle was at least... She was spunky, she was smart, she was different.
She wanted to learn, even if she kind of put all that away for the Beast. That's a whole different
I usually stopped the movie before we got there. Honestly, I would kind of stop it around the time she went back to the village, and I was like, I'm good. I liked him better as a beast anyway. I thought he was cuter.
Everyone does. No, I was funny about Little Mermaid scene. I remember double featuring that and All Dogs Go to Heaven opening weekend. Like, my grandparents took my brother and I to a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And then those both came out against each other. So you had Don Bluth versus Disney. And then I remember I liked All Dogs Go to Heaven more than I did Little Mermaid, which I haven't seen in like 15 years. But we went to see one, and then we went to see the other. One was my pick, one was my brother's pick.
Right.
My brother wanted to see Little Mermaid. He's 4 years younger than me, so he was 4. So, and then I wanted to see All Dogs Go to Heaven, so we went to see that. But I did want to bring up, talking about hating movies the first time we watched them, or kid movies. That when I posted that we were talking about this week onto our page, which, by the way, you should go to facebook.com/CityOfGeek and go to CityOfGeek.com, which we didn't mention at the beginning.
No.
My friend Andy posted that his favorite movie is Kids American Tail. Which was the very first movie I saw in theaters. The very first movie I did not like.
How old were you?
It came out when I guess we were like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But I remember going to see it, and I was like, I remember not liking it then. And my mom used to say, like, that's the first time you went, that stunk, or something like that. Which I still haven't revisited it since then, though. I remember watching Five Will Goes West a bunch of times. Yeah. I remember watching the television show. I did just buy, a couple weeks ago, buy both those movies in a pack from, like, Big Lots for, like, $2.
Yeah.
So I'll check them out here again soon. But that's awful. That's often one of people's favorites. But I didn't like it then, and I haven't revisited it since I was like 3 or 4.
Wow.
So I don't know how it's gonna hold up if I watch it this time. Maybe I'll like it better as 35-year-old, 36-year-old.
I remember liking as a kid, but again, it wasn't one that I ever felt the need to. Like, I'm someone too. I rewatch even as an adult. If I like something, I almost can't stop watching until it's like so cemented within me that I'm like, okay, now I've absorbed it, I'm good, let's move on to the next thing. And hence me watching Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory every day. That wasn't one that I ever felt compelled to. One of the first movies, I don't think it was the first movie I ever saw, was one of the first ones I remember in theaters was Land Before Time.
Yeah, I remember watching that. More Don Bluth.
And and it was it's a heavy movie for.
A lot of stuff going on.
It's got a lot of stuff going on, and bleak. Again, going to that, and I think the Bluth
80s
stuff.
animation was rather bleak.
Yeah, but I think the Bluth stuff more than the Disney wasn't afraid to go to some darker places overall. I mean, in terms of themes, like you saw again, Hunchback of Notre Dame had some dark stuff in it. You saw
Black Soldier from 85, which Disney pretends doesn't exist.
Yeah, which
I think they don't really have the rights to the books anymore, so I think that's part of it. They don't get all the money.
They don't get all the money.
Lloyd Alexander's estate gets a lot of the money.
Yeah.
And then they kind of messed it up, but anyway.
But I mean, again, like All Dogs Go to Heaven, Land Before Time, you have these. Lots of death, lots of...
All Dogs Go to Heaven is built around dogs dying.
Dogs dying, yeah.
There's a dog hell.
Yeah. So it's, again, and I can't imagine seeing a movie like that today. Or being made like that today.
Well, I think some movies kind of start to go in there, and which one of the questions I asked, like, of recent movies that you think younger versions of ourselves would like. Like, I went to see House with the Clock in its Walls a couple weeks ago. I love that movie. Fantastic film. Not a lot of people saw it, which is sad. But I thought, like, 10-year-old Bob would have loved this movie from top to bottom. And, of course, Spielberg produced it. So
you really like your Spielberg.
Yeah, who doesn't, right? Or all the stuff from Leica. A lot of that is darker stuff, like Paranorman and Box Trolls.
Paranorman, I really did
Coraline, and now, like, with Kubo, it also gets in a lot of this,
I still haven't
themes.
seen that.
And then the new one looks more actually, I thought the new one looks very Aardman-esque. The Missing Link is their next movie, and but it reminded me of the Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, it has that
humor.
kind of style.
Very British-ish.
I would have been all about, and I am, the Wreck-It Ralph movies. Mm-hmm. I love those. I loved the first one. I loved the second one. It hits a lot of the Kim buttons, the fun, the silly, but smart, yes. and good characters, flawed leads. I like flaws in my main characters because perfect is not interesting.
You don't love all the Mary Sues and everything else?
No. I will say some of the more contemporary Disney I do dig. Like, I went and saw Moana and I fucking loved it.
Moana's fantastic. Coco's fantastic. They're on a better streak. Yeah, they come and go.
Yeah, and I think they've had a more conscious effort to have more diversity, to have more to one of the things I liked about Moana, and it was similar to, I remember seeing Mulan in theaters, and Mulan is still one of my favorite.
Yeah, I didn't see that until as an adult, so I missed a lot of the mid-90s Disney. Like, I missed that, Hunchback, I'm going to see Pocahontas first time this year. So
wow.
Not Moana. Mulan for the first time about 2 years ago. Same thing with, like, Allison showing me all the stuff, because that's, my wife's 7 years younger, so that's her era of Disney is that, and I somehow missed them all, maybe because I was a teenager, and I'm like, eh.
Yeah, well, and I mean, to be fair, they are marketed, I feel like the appeal for, because I saw a lot of these movies even as a teenager, but there was still an appeal there for me. And I used to see them with my aunt. We'd go to the Disney movies. In fact, that's who I saw Moana with. But I loved Mulan because you were starting to see the cracks in the let's do a story about a Disney princess who is not going to need someone else to rescue her, who's taking initiative, who's, you were starting to see them maybe playing with the model of, we don't just need to have Sleeping Beauty be asleep.
Yeah. And
maybe she can do it herself. And so I appreciate that there is an effort for diversity, love or hate Frozen.
I'm on the fence for Frozen, to be honest. There's things I love, things I don't like.
Yeah, for me, the kid elements are too kid, but I like the sister story. I think that that's really lovely, and a nice message. And I like that the focus of it.
An ice message.
Ba-dum-bump. I like that the focus of it isn't just girl with guy.
Yeah,
I like
and
that
they rip into that in the beginning. Even if it does kind of come through again with Anna and what's his face.
But they don't.
Kristoff.
It's I know, I mix all the. See, that's just I mix all the male characters in that up. I can't remember any of their names. But it moves a little bit away from that, and so I appreciate that. But I thought Moana was genuinely nicely done. I was never super into The Lion King, although the Tamor musical I like. Because I like all the puppetry. I know. I
have tickets for the 18th. Yeah.
I need to get tickets.
I've never seen it. So
I've never seen it. I've never seen it live.
I've never even heard it. So.
Oh, it's the music's lovely.
It's a lot the same as the thing, but that's a whole different thing.
Yeah. Yeah, some of those stories just never super appealed to me. I
didn't see Lion King until much later because my family went to see it when I was away at computer camp because I was a nerd. Still am a nerd. Back then I knew how computers worked. Now they break when I touch them. My computer knowledge ended in like 1997. But the family went to see it when I was away for a week. I'm like, really?
How dare you?
So I didn't catch it till like years later. But anyway, I interrupted you about Lion King.
Oh, I don't remember what I was saying.
But that's a very loved movie by so many people, and we'll see how the remake does next year. I haven't watched the trailer yet for that. When I see it, I see it. I figure when I go see Mary Poppins, I'll see the trailer.
I was never super into Lion King, so I'm not super excited about the what they're doing. In general, I've not been super excited with the live action versions they've been doing because they're not really offering anything
Many
new
of them
for
are
me.
like. I will say that I like Jon Favreau, who is doing Lion King, but his version of the Jungle Book I thought was a fantastic update.
I still haven't seen it.
Because it took a lot of like the first movie, which is more like vignettes, and turned into like a bigger story. So there's more of a through line.
Okay.
And it really built on that. The only thing I didn't like about that was Bill Murray's Baloo, who I thought was really phoning it in.
Yeah.
Like it's more of like, yeah, we'll get Bill Murray because he sounds like he'd be perfect for this. But
Right.
then he like obviously didn't give a crap.
He's like,
he was Bill Murray,
and
not
I'll
giving a
take
crap.
this paycheck.
And there's a whole difference there for Bill Murray. Is like when he's good and when he's bad are two different things.
Oh, I forgot to mention this movie, but Bedknobs and Broomsticks. That was.
I watched that more than Mary Poppins when I was growing
Yeah,
up.
I liked that more than Mary Poppins growing up. Mary Poppins I enjoyed, but I clicked with Bedknobs and Broomsticks in a way I didn't with Mary Poppins. And yet it's a much lesser known movie, much less popular movie, but man, I loved it.
Because of Mary Poppins being the
Yeah,
it was.
you can see the influence of it, but I loved and I mean, part of it was, I think I liked that Angela Lansbury's character was not perfect. She was a little cranky. She was, standoffish. She was a witch and not
The positive showing of a witch.
Yeah, and a little stuffy, and that Mary Poppins is so perfect.
Practically perfect.
In every way. But it's and I think that's just it. Some of these movies where you just have these perfect characters, I didn't find interesting as a kid, and I still don't as an adult. Like, I liked that both of the lead male, because the male lead in Bedknobs and Broomsticks is very flawed too. He's like a con man or whatever. Yeah.
Tricking her into the magic school, which turns out she actually has
magical powers. But I liked that you saw growth. And in Mary Poppins, I get that Mary Poppins' growth isn't the point of the movie, but she's the character she's the title character. You want that. So a lot of the Disney princesses are too perfect. You want the flaws. You want to see that they're having to...
That brings you back to Penelope, what's her face?
Yeah.
I had to say Penelope Pitstop, but that's
Penelope from the Wreck-It Ralphs. Like, she is also, she's got her glitch. She's, and she can be obnoxious and impulsive, and Ralph is the villain in his video game. And it's in general, flawed characters are more interesting for me. And I care more because we're flawed individuals, and
I'm
so
perfect. What are you talking about?
You're
I'm
practically
totally
perfect in every way.
I'm totally not just mush-mouthing my way through podcasts. My voice is perfect radio voice.
Oh yes,
Totally.
But yeah, I think that was a lot of the draw when I was younger. I tended to be more interested in movies that you had more flaws in your characters. In fact, in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I found Charlie to be kind of the most dull character. But I liked Willy Wonka.
But everyone else had their fantastic flaws.
Exactly. But their character. I like characters. And Willy Wonka. I mean, my God, Gene Wilder. Oh, Gene Wilder.
He's amazing.
He's
Absolutely.
amazing.
You can't miss him. Shit.
I threw you.
No, I was trying to think of what
Damn
else
it.
in there. Like, because I wanted to bring up like Addams Family and Addams Family Values.
Oh,
two
yeah.
movies I watched all the time. Like, which
Yeah.
are still comfort movies for me.
Yeah.
And me and Allison as well. Like, that's usually what we put on if like we're in a bad mood, or once a year we'll watch both movies. Like, we just watched Values again at Central Cinema. I played it last week.
That's
and we
right.
got to
That's
see
right.
it, to a packed house, and it was awesome. You know, to see it big, and as big as Central Cinema does it.
Right.
For those of you listening in Seattle, go to Central. It's on Union 21st. They play nothing but rep stuff. So,
Nice. The Sister Act movies.
I didn't watch this as a kid, but they're not my wheelhouse.
I saw because they had the musical aspect too. I loved movies that had music in them, songs in them, had a good soundtrack. And I went and saw that. My whole family went and saw that. And that was one of the VHSs we owned, the Sister Act VHS. My whole family liked to rewatch that movie, and that's another one. If I catch it on, I will watch it. That was Maggie Smith before I really understood who Maggie Smith was.
She's in this? Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, yeah. She plays the
Yeah.
Mother Superior.
Oh, okay.
And it was for years. Anytime she popped up in a movie, that's how I'd refer to her as. It's the lady from Sister Act.
Rather than
Because I didn't know any better. Yeah.
Again, we didn't see that until we were adults. But
Exactly.
Harry Potter didn't come out till.
Or an appreciation for the fact that by the time she was in Sister Act, she'd already had a very decent career.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I knew her as the lady from Sister Act. And so for years afterwards, that's how I'd refer to her as. And it wasn't until I got older and I realized that she was, awesome.
Amazing and everything.
Exactly. No, she's, the cast of Sister Act is actually quite good. There's a lot of, it's that person in it.
Stuff that, 10-year-old Kim's not going to know, but,
Oh, yeah,
30-something
and 30-something Kim understands. But even just, I still listen to the soundtrack for that. Again, talk about, it's if I'm walking and one of the songs comes on, and especially, I was raised Catholic, so there is that little added element of liking the, Catholicism doesn't have to make you want to kill yourself.
But I feel guilty no matter what you think. 'Cause I was raised Catholic too. So.
Yeah, I can't. I will never shake. I'm retired Catholic now. I will never shake any of my guilt for anything in life. That's just how I spend my life, guilty. But yeah, that was a big movies I went and saw with my family. Mrs. Doubtfire was another one that I went.
Yeah,
which
that was a huge hit in time.
Now you're like, oh shit, that movie's problematic.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But as a child, it was hysterical.
It's a drive-by fruiting.
And again, I didn't realize Pierce Brosnan was. For years, he was the guy from Mrs. Doubtfire to me.
Before he was James Bond.
Before he was James Bond. I think when the James Bond commercial first came out, I was like, "Oh, Dad, hey, it's that guy from Mrs. Doubtfire." My dad's like, "Yes, dear."
I remember him from Remington Steele because my mom used to watch that show. So I still kind of think of that before you even think of Bond, because his Bond movies aren't even good. Well, besides GoldenEye, they're not good. So
that's implying that any Bond movies are good. Oh,
they're problematic for themselves. Incredibly problematic.
How that man has not died of an STD, because he never once says, you know what we should do before we have more sex? Put on a condom. Never. Just saying. Anyway.
I didn't watch any of those as a kid, so
I had to, and I still resent my dad. If you're not listening right now,
movies or Dan movies?
No, my brother doesn't. No, they were my father movies, and let me tell you, every time he gives me shit about watching horror films when I was a kid, I'm like, you made me watch Goldfinger. You know how fucked up that is for a kid to see? There's like the sex that I didn't understand what was happening, and there's women, and there's no, Dad. No, that messed me up more than any horror film ever would. Anyway. Yeah, a lot of John Wayne movies too. That I was like, I didn't watch. I don't like
my
this.
dad's not a Western fan, so I didn't watch.
God, I wish my dad wasn't a Western fan.
My dad's not a big movie person to start with, so there's only a handful of things that he really watched, and nothing. The only thing he handed to me and said, hey, watch this, which then he said later he regretted, was the Monty Python, the Holy Grail. But that was like in 1995, so it was like well past the point of childhood movies.
Right.
But then that became everything. I sucked out everything Monty Python after that, and he's like, I wish I never loaned you that tape. Whereas, like, my mom was the one who showed me Rocky Horror to start with. Around like mid 90s, we were watching. We were flipping through the channels, and we came across Phantom of the Paradise. And we were like, my mom was like, is this Rocky Horror? I'm like, what's Rocky Horror? So we watched the rest of Phantom of the Paradise, and then we went to the video store and rented Rocky, and, everything changed.
I used to, when AMC showed, I can't even make this joke because, they are technically still showing old movies. It's just old movies are now movies from the 80s. When I was growing up, by the time I was a teenager, like early teenager, I had a TV in my room, and I would be up late at night watching AMC when they were airing movies from the 40s, movies from the 50s. So that's, I saw The Ghost of Mrs. Muir for the first time on AMC, and I loved, I have a DVD of The Ghost of Mrs. Muir, Inherit the Winds. These were also kind of childhood movies to me, or again, making that transition because they were innocent. They were, GPG, but they were more adults because they were
about adults doing adult
things. Yeah. I first saw Jane Eyre for the first time, the Orson Welles version on AMC, which made me want to read the book. And I read the book and I was like, this is nothing like that movie. But a lot of movies from the 40s and the 50s and the 60s became my teenage years. I was really drawn to a lot of the older movies, as well as then the supremely silly movies. But that was all stuff that became very comfort food also.
Yeah, I had that for more of television in my end. Like,
yeah.
we spent a lot of time with my grandparents and watched a lot of Nick at Night. So, like, when I was growing up, Get Smart was my favorite show.
Get Smart was my favorite show.
Straight up, like, we listened to a lot of oldies. So my music was like, this was my Beach Boys and the Beatles were my favorite band until like to the mid '90s. And I was like, hey, what's alt rock? That's when I learned about new music because that's all we listened to. Like, and watched so much of like Nick at Night with Dick Van Dyke Show and Carol Burnett Show.
Mary Tyler Moore.
Watched all of those.
Bewitched.
Those were the television shows I grew up watching.
Mr. Ed, too. I loved Mr. Ed.
I don't know how that show survived as long as it did. There's like one plot?
There's one plot. No, it's like, I rewatched an episode recently because I was like, oh, I loved this show. I'm watching. I was like, oh my God, this is boring.
Allison didn't believe that show existed. I mentioned it as a joke, and she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, and I started singing the song. She's like, you made that up.
A horse is a horse, no. Of course.
Like, no, it's a real show.
It's a real show, I promise you.
It's like, and she's like, how did that last as long as it did? I don't know.
How did Leave It to Beaver last as long as it did? I don't know. Dennis the Menace, Lassie. I mean, the dog was cute. But how many times can Timmy fall down the well?
Every week for
10
years or however long it was.
Put a cover on your goddamn well, people.
You need a new Timmy.
Oh, we lost another Timmy. Oh, dinosaurs. Yeah. That was, I loved that show.
With the scientist side character, the Mr. Wizard type guy, which I watched.
Oh, Mr. Wizard. Oh. And Double Dare.
Yeah.
And Legends of the Hidden Temple.
With old Mech.
And was the Supermarket Shop or whatever.
On Lifetime, yeah. I used to watch that.
I was obsessed with, I don't understand why that was, because I was a kid, but I could not stop watching that. Partly because I really wanted to do it. I really wanted to run through a supermarket and just shove things in the cart.
Like, why didn't like push the cart like with their stomach and just go
and just go right?
It's like always like
don't be so.
Just grab everything.
Just
you have 5 minutes. You can get everything in that store.
Right? That always mystified me. And there was another one of the game shows. I can't remember what it was, but it was on, I think, on Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon shows, too. Salute Your Shorts.
Yeah, watch Salute Your Shorts. Hey,
Dude.
Hey,
Dude. Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was something that took place in high school that I was trying to remember the other day.
16? 15? Was it like the Canadian soap opera or?
Degrassi?
No. It was. I think it was 15 or 16.
There was some sort of comedy. This was a comedy. I think it was a comedy. I don't know.
This was a Canadian soap opera.
Maybe 12-year-old Bob didn't realize it wasn't a comedy. But there was something joke that Allison referenced about living in school, and I said I remember some TV show which the kids joked that his teacher was always wearing the same suit, so he must sleep at the school. And they snuck back in at some point, and they went to his classroom, and they opened up his closet, and he was asleep, hanging from a hanger. Asleep, not dead.
Yeah, see, my mind went to dead.
Hanging from a hanger with, like, a row of the same suit. And I've been meaning to look it up so if I could find what show that was. But
there was the Andy Mack show or
Alex Mack.
Yeah. Andy Mack's I watch Andy Mack. I find it delightful.
There's Necker.
Yeah.
Her name is like my first crush.
Alex Mack, but that wasn't
that was the late 90s. That was like around time was like all that.
Yeah, and
that was like high school, Bob.
Yeah.
Maybe middle school.
I Salute Your Shorts and Hey Dude were the big one, and then Are You Afraid of the Dark are the ones that really Wild and Crazy Kids. Was it like Joy? No, Funhouse or something?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah. What is that?
It's the automatic feeder.
In which they had to kind of go through and grab the things, and they had like the prize vault or whatever it was.
No, this was the sketch show.
Oh, okay.
It was on Snick, but I can't. It was.
That's you can't say that on television.
No. That was the.
Which I used to watch.
I used to watch that too. No, this was. It played on Snick, and it was. like Funhouse or
All
Joy
that?
House or no, because all that was later for me.
Oh,
And I
Roundhouse.
hated Roundhouse. Yes,
I remember that.
Yes, I knew House was in it. No, I hated all that. I think I was a little too old by the time it
I
started
always
airing.
thought that
I thought it was
all
dumb.
that was really directly winky.
It was trying so hard, and I found most of the actors really obnoxious.
I like the first season, and then after that, I think when Amanda Bynes came on, that's when it kind of like lost it because they threw her in front of the camera continually, and she wasn't all that good.
No,
she was very, very hammy in a bad way.
Yeah, it tried way too hard, but I'm trying to think of other stuff in the high school. I don't know. I'll have to.
Yeah, I'll find it later.
But
that was, like a lot of Nick, of course. Because Nickelodeon came out in like '78, so like it was very much our age growing up. Like watching, you can't do that on television, and which is a Canadian import as well, and British import.
Alanis Morissette.
It was for one season.
Yeah, it was on the show.
There's a YouTube channel I've been watching about the history of Nickelodeon, going show by show. Year by year.
That actually sounds really cool.
It's on Pop Arena. If
I'll have to look for that. Yeah.
It's called Knickknacks.
Knickknacks.
They're 1982 right now, so he's got a while to go. He's doing it for really intense.
They used to do a animated fairy tale thing that I watched when I was little.
I used to watch David the Gnome.
Yeah, David the Gnome and Maya the Bee.
I know it existed. Never watched it.
I like when I was homesick. I remember Maya the Bee being on.
We're watching Duckula and a bunch of stuff imports from Britain, like Duckula and Mighty Mouse and Danger Mouse. And I don't know if all those are on Nickelodeon or on different channels, but
Duckula, or Count Duckula and Darkwing Duck. That wasn't Nickelodeon, but I loved Darkwing Duck.
What's Darkwing Duck and
Gummy Bears
DuckTales
and DuckTales
like back and forth.
Tailspin.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, life
Many
is
lives
like
a
hurricane.
Yeah, going to DuckTales.
No, that's the DuckTales song. What was the Tailspin song?
I don't know, but you're singing DuckTales. But still, we're just Darkwing Duck. Let's get dangerous.
Let's get Inspector Gadget.
Yeah.
That was a Nickelodeon.
Inspector
Gadget.
watch the
And Don Adams.
Yes.
Did the voice for that. And I didn't.
Would you believe?
Well, it's funny too because I was watching Get Smart at the same time, and it took a ridiculously long amount of time for me to realize that the voice of Inspector Gadget was the same guy on Get Smart.
Yeah.
Like an embarrassing amount of time. To be fair, I was a kid because you don't think about those things when you're a kid. But those were such good shows. Oh, Get Smart, man. That show, I should rewatch that.
I had the first season.
Does it hold up?
I thought so when I watched it a couple years ago.
Okay.
Like, some of the stuff doesn't. It's obviously television from the '60s, so it's not going to be as strong. But Mel Brooks made the show. He kind of walked away after a little bit. He set it up and then went off to his own thing.
Bye.
But like him and Buck Henry got that going, and Buck Henry I think stuck around, and Mel Brooks took off. But it's still like his show, so it's still something.
And Mork and Mindy.
Yeah, I watched that.
I loved Mork and Mindy.
I've never seen an episode of Happy Days, but I have watched like all Mork and Mindy's.
I've never seen straight through. I've seen clips from Happy Days. I've never watched an episode straight through.
I can culturally tell you about it. But,
but it never appealed, and I that didn't used to air. At least I felt like if it aired maybe on TV Land or something.
Yeah, probably something like that. Or TBS in the afternoon. CBS.
I used to love on New Year's Eve. Nick at Night did their countdown to New Year's thing where they would air like their most popular episodes, counting down to their best episode or whatever. And they used to, I don't know when they stopped doing it. I used to love it. I don't know if people requested episodes, but it was a marathon that lasted for I don't know if it was 24 hours or 12 hours. It may have been 12 hours. And there was, I feel like multiple years, the Mary Tyler Moore episode where the clown dies was often number one. But that, I always look forward to that.
I don't remember particular episodes in any of the particular shows. I remember just watching them. Like,
I remember, there's some that really stand out in my head. Dick Van Dyke, I kept watching for a long time too. I really liked.
That was a really well done show.
Yeah, and
I want to like revisit it and see how well it does.
And you got to appreciate that Dick Van Dyke is still
kicking.
Still kicking.
Knock on wood.
Well, I know. I hope I didn't just jinx it.
And he's apparently in Mary Poppins Returns, so Well,
He better be.
if he's not, then we're missing. It's funny that Julie Andrews is not in it, but she is in Aquaman, which comes out against it.
Which we can see a week early.
Through Prime, yeah.
Through Prime.
I've been
Which,
tempted to get a ticket, but I've been
so
decided,
have I.
don't want to pay for it, or but I might do it anyway just to kind of clear it up. But yeah, we can look at that later.
Jason Momoa. Shirtless.
Yeah, that's what we gotta have.
There's never a bad time.
Going back to just movies generally, is there any other movies that we haven't talked about that young Cam watched?
White Fang.
White Fang, nice.
I remember that was one of the ones that it was a Dan pick to go in the theaters, but I ended up really liking it because I liked animal stuff. Although the dog fighting stuff really upset me when I was a kid. That was a good let's have context when we get out of the movie and talk about why this was happening, because I remember being really upset by that and afraid that the animals got hurt.
Actually,
for real.
yeah.
And that's something
Not
I still
Milo Otis, which did, but that's just...
I used to watch Milo. Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey. That the one with Michael J. Fox voiced one of them, and Sally Field and
Bruce Willis.
Was it Bruce Willis?
Bruce Willis did the big dog, I think.
Okay, I can't remember the big. I remember Sally Field and Michael J. Fox very vividly. But those were big Kim movies.
Yeah, I'm not a big talking animal person. So
I see, because I was all about the kittens and the puppies for a very long. Kittens and puppies and machetes. So that was that was kind of my jam.
Kittens, puppies, and machetes. It's Kim's.
It's the name of my memoir. Yeah. Anything with animals, I tended to be pretty gung-ho for, and if they talked, it was an added bonus. I'm sure I'm missing some. How about you? Is there anything we haven't really hit on?
The other thing I watched in rotation was Ernest Goes to Camp.
Oh, I see, and I was in Ernest Goes to Camp and Ernest Saves Christmas.
Yes.
I loved Ernest Saves Christmas. I saw Ernest
Goes to Jail my birthday in 1992, 91, whenever it came out. Yeah. That was a big day. But Ernest Goes to Camp is the one I watched.
You know what I mean, Vern? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Those were staples.
I'm pretty sure I wore out a VHS or two of Goes to Camp.
Oh.
I need I have them all. I haven't rewatched them. I need to get around. I bought an Ernest box set.
Right.
It's but do I want to watch it? Is it gonna work? Am I gonna be what was young me thinking?
The Santa Claus. When I was a kid, I loved the Santa Claus.
We watch that every year.
I still watch that.
Straight up. Sorry. I thought I kicked you.
Oh no, you kicked my table, but that's okay. You're allowed to do that. Yeah. No, the Santa Claus. I remember seeing. I remember some of the Christmas ones I watched that I was fine with, but didn't stick with. Prancer, I remember seeing in theaters and
coming out.
I was fine with it, but it wasn't one that had an animal in it, but it still didn't fully gel with me. The remake of Miracle on 34th Street, I loved. I have that too.
Mara Wilson again.
If you'd like it, I liked Mara Wilson when I was little, or I shouldn't say little because I was a couple. No, I guess I'm a few years older than her. I think.
Yeah, Mrs. Doubtfire. She's in there.
Yeah,
Mara Wilson's all over the place, and now she's doing awesome stuff on her own.
She is. She really is. Anything else that we?
I think my list covered just about everything there. Didn't mention Hook, more Spielberg.
Hook
was my favorite movie until when I first saw it, and then until Jurassic Park took over. So Spielberg.
So that was another one we had the actual copy of, not just taped off television. That was we owned a VHS copy of that.
It's also one of the ones I'm afraid to pick up because I know its reputation is its shit. So I'm like, do I want to watch Hook and hate myself for it, or do I want to just leave it? But I wonder if one of the things I wanted to push, we're almost out of time, so I can't get into this too much, but of watching movies from childhood, or movies that would appeal to you as a child, do you try and watch it with nostalgia glasses on, or try and approach it as an adult? If I think of Hook as a 10-year-old watching it,
right?
I'm watching it as a 36-year-old, but purposely approaching it that way, I was saying how much I loved House of the Clock and Swallows. I appreciate it now, but I tried to also see it as the target audience.
Yeah.
Or Wish Upon, we talked about last year, approaching it as a 12-year-old.
Yes,
it's really good. Approaching it as a 36-year-old, it's not.
And I think I enjoyed it as a 36-year-old more than you did, but partially because I think there's a lot of working with kids too, or working with teenagers, and sometimes having the mentality of one. I still watch the dumb. I like a lot of the CW shows and some of the freeform stuff. I like the teen movies that come out. There's a part of me that's like, yeah, I still really dig these. I think some movies it's hard for me to take nostalgia glasses off of, because if I have that deep a love for something, I can't be impartial about it. I rewatched Squirm, which was it's the first horror film I can remember watching.
Wow.
With my mom when
we were watching on Mystery Science.
I was like 5 years old, and I remember watching it with my mom. And again, years, because they used to air on TV a lot.
Yeah.
And it's the first horror film I can recall watching, and so I have a real like special association with it. And I wrote an article about it it was one of the first issues of Belladonna, and I rewatched it. I have it on Blu-ray. And I can't look at it with anything but love. And it's a ridiculous movie, but I love how ridiculous it is.
Yeah, it's really fun, and I'm not a big
really fun.
insect type. It's not insects, but that type of
creepy crawly.
Creepy crawly's actually creepy crawly me. So
fair enough.
But I have
the shower stuff, or when he's got them like when they're controlling him, and he's got the worms coming out. Anyway, so there's ones that like I don't think I could ever look at like Dark Crystal or Last Unicorn or some of those and not love them. Sister Act. I fucking love that movie. I will never not love that movie. Is it a good movie? It's hard for me to be objective about it because I have such a deep love for it. Mrs. Doubtfire, I think, is more obviously problematic now, where I can look at it and be like, yeah, that's kind of fucked up. But there's also the part of you that still wants to laugh at all the ridiculous things happening.
I think maybe sometimes it's like who might watch it. Like I showed Allison Neverending Story about the time we started dating, about 7 years ago. She hated it, and then because of her kind of ripping into it, I kind of like started to see it this way. I'm like, this isn't very good.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
This is like badly done with this and that, and really awkward, and like. And then it's like, then I kind of like, man, should I show her more stuff from my childhood? Like, she had never seen Goonies, so it's Goonies. She enjoyed it, and she understands why people would like it. And I still enjoyed that part of it. But she's like, yeah, that wasn't my favorite. No, but at least in this case, we didn't like rip it apart.
Right. And to be fair, like Goonies was never one of my favorites growing up either, and part of that is the lack of like, there's not as many female characters in it.
Which is a big thing for Allison, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely understand that point.
I feel that way about a number of some of the big movies I've had trouble connecting to. I think it's some of my lack of being able to connect to Star Wars. Like, you've got Princess Leia, but...
That's really it.
Until
now. Yeah.
Until now. And I love the new Star Wars movies. Like, I love Rey. I think she's a fabulous character.
Rey is fantastic. Everyone's fantastic. I think, like, for when it comes to that, like... They were all instantly iconic.
Yeah, and
I interrupt you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
But I'm much more drawn to those characters now. One of the reasons why I started reading the Harry Potter books in college around the time of the first movie, because I think it was my sophomore year of college, the first movie came out, and a bunch of my castmates in the show I was doing were going to see it, and I was like, I don't know what this thing is. I've heard about it. Sure, I'll come with you. And from that, I started watching reading the books. But I think the only reason why I was able to get into Harry Potter as much as I could is because I love Hermione. Partially because we're both... she is, and we're both bushy-haired know-it-alls. So I was like, That's
why I edit out half the stuff you talk about. You just go off and...
I do. No, I never stop talking. I'm like the Energizer Bunny. My poor parents. But... I do find, and as I get older, I'm noticing I don't know if getting worse is the right word for it, but like, I am unable to, I can't bring myself to care about a lot of movies if they're, even historical movies, like the one about going to the moon, could not bring myself to care about it.
The First Man.
First Man. I was like, I give zero fucks about this movie. I still haven't seen Dunkirk. I'm sure it's
Dunkirk is
great.
Absolutely fantastic.
I'm sure it is.
Zero female characters.
But and it's not fair. It's a historical movie, but I just all my life, I've had to watch History of Men, and I'm bored.
As it should be. No, I'm kidding.
No, but I'm kidding. It's now that I'm older, I'm just like, I'm tired of, I want to see, and I think part of it is that we're finally being given movies, and so once you get a taste for it, you're like, no, I'm fucking latching on to Wonder Woman with my hands, and until Captain Marvel's out, I'm gonna be sitting here holding on to her skirt being like, no, you've given me a female superhero. We got this. You're gonna fucking keep giving me female superheroes, you assholes.
As much as the assholes, the neckbeards are complaining about it, it's like, shut up, assholes. You still, like, the new Ghostbusters doesn't make the old one to succeed.
No!
And I love the new one. I don't care.
And
the new one has its issues. It has actual issues with it. But I still love the hell out of it.
And it's great characters.
And the original has all sorts of issues that people won't.
Exactly. Because my childhood.
The plotting of the original Ghostbusters is a mess.
Yeah.
Tell me the timeline of that movie. You can't. It goes, like, Winston says this happened yesterday, but movie-wise it happened, like, weeks ago.
Yeah.
And there's whole sorts of things like that. There's writing issues all over the place in that movie.
But I love Doctor Who. I stopped watching Doctor Who a couple years ago because I got bored. And I started watching again because they brought in a female doctor.
Yeah, I need to catch up.
And I love it. And she's awesome. And it's so... I like that they're acknowledging that, like, there's things that she's being questioned on she never would have been questioned on before when she was in a man's body. And I love that so much because it's so true. I posted something about mansplaining on my Facebook page, and
you got mansplained.
I got fucking mansplained by a guy who I know, and he won't listen to this, but on the off chance he is, I'm sorry, you mansplain all the time. And what are you saying it like person-splaining? I'm like, no, fuck you, it's mansplaining. Oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I saw his post.
But I'm like, dude, it's the fucking construction guys. As my unit's being worked on, they mansplain to me. Not that I know, but they'll say things so condescending, and I'm like, if I watch them talk to my dad, they don't talk to my dad this way. And so this was a really long ass tangent. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's fine.
But I really think that's where. There's movies I have trouble getting excited about now. It feels like it would be a chore to go see because it's one more story about a male character, and it's not that's good. It's not that we shouldn't have those, but as a kid, you had to fight to find the ones that weren't just.
Yeah, especially like for people our age. Yeah. Of course, I grew up a white male, so I had all the stories.
You had all the stories,
but I appreciate that that's out there now. Like I love that the photo of the little girl next to Gal Gadot, and the other ones with the girls freaking out over seeing the new Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
and it's like. And of course, it's only 2 examples, but
I watched probably like 50 of them. Women posting their daughters' reactions to the new Doctor Who being a woman, and man, I got teary-eyed watching that. It's this is a whole other episode of the podcast. I've turned this into something that has nothing to do with what we're.
But it's good, like seeing like speaking of childhood, childhood princesses now being generals. With Princess Leia, now General Organa.
Yes.
I generally call her General Organa now, rather than even talking in the past. Even though I call her Princess Leia like twice this episode, I generally refer to her mostly as Space Mom. Space Mom. I like Space Mom. And that's what Alice and I called Han and Leia Space Mom and Space Dad. They're my OTP. But we also but Robin Wright from Princess Bride
to being the general of the Amazons, like
exactly.
This badass bitch where you're like, that's right.
And so well as a character, they added scenes of her in Justice League, so Justice League sucked, but it's a whole different thing. But at least she got more screen time. More screen time. And I've heard the new season House of Cards is awful, but she's the president, kicking ass. Right?
And it's I look at the movies that still to this day are real dear to me, and a lot of them are ones that have female leads or female. I mean, again, Mrs. Frisbee, she's a really interesting character because she's fairly meek, but she has to pull on a lot of strength. And I love the Rat's name. Last Unicorn's a lady. There's and yet, like, again, Goonies, I liked it, but it wasn't one I had to rewatch a million times because I just...
The women are there because of the dudes.
Because of the dudes. A lot of the, even...
There's the sex bot and then the ugly one.
And then the ugly one. No, there is. And I'm sorry, Ghostbusters, I liked it.
Dana is a plot point, really.
But I didn't connect to it. And I like ghosts. And I had trouble connecting to it. So it's...
That and it gets it all wrong anyway. Just kidding.
Well, we're not even going to get into that.
We'll save that episode for later on.
But I think that there's a reason why Disney princesses are not perfect, but they're women. And they're women who are headlining their own films. So did I continue to go see Disney movies past when I was probably interested in them? Yeah, because they were women headlining movies. Often being rescued by men, but they were still women headlining their own movies. So I'm excited that we're finally... I mean, I identify so much with Vanellope. Like, she's my Disney princess. Little obnoxious thing that talks too much. What's there not to love?
So Sarah Silverman's perfect for that. Then.
Yeah, exactly, man. But like Sarah Silverman, I appreciate her.
When we were at Disney last week, I was joking that can't we put Sarah Silverman and Patton Oswalt like in Disney movies? Imagine the outtakes there. Like imagine like if you ever get like Remy and Vanellope in the same movie, that recording session is going to be insane.
That'd be amazing. I'm excited for the kids movies that are happening because I think there's some really awesome stuff, and I think there's some really awesome stuff for...
As bad as issues that Frozen has, it's still great.
It's still
Moana doesn't need anyone else.
And
what I love about Moana is that solving the issue without like the big fights. Like, nope, you need to be loved.
You need to be loved.
Here's your heart back. And problem solved.
Here's compassion.
Yeah.
Here's I recognizing harm that's been done to you.
Some man fucked you over by stealing your heart.
Yeah.
He's right over there, by the way. I'll smash him first. I can give you back the heart, and then we can go.
Like men fucking things up, and women having to be like, "All right, let's come in." Which, and I understand why some of the men might feel frustrated right now, but I feeling like, but it's not like.
They're still getting
getting all the Marvel movies pretty much. Yeah. There's still
the stories are still there.
And I love the Marvel movies.
And the old ones are still there too.
Yeah, and I mean James Bond's still a man. James Bond will always be a man. You're still getting all your dude bro comedies. You're still getting your superhero movies. You're getting your Aquaman. You're getting your no one is taking anything away from you. They're just telling more stories, and not just women. Telling more stories of people. Who are not just whites, and telling more stories of people who identify differently. It's a good thing. Representation matters.
Exactly.
I've gone on a really long rant. I'm apologize.
We're a little bit over time, but it's been fine because I think the conversation's been wonderful. Actually, talked a lot more about a lot more things than I expected, which is glad to see because I was worried that we'd just be like listing things that we liked. So we just talked about children's movies and children's entertainment on the whole.
Yeah.
Rather. On how it's changed and how things have
the evolution of it a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More than simply just going through like, I love Ernest Goes to Camp. I watched Great Outdoors too much as a kid, which I didn't mention earlier. Or
Uncle Buck,
that's actually on
Uncle
there.
Buck.
A bunch of John Hughes
Candy
stuff.
and
John Hughes and John Candy things were on TV in a loop. So
yeah.
Ferris Bueller, of course, he's on in Ferris Bueller.
Yeah.
But he's in Little Shop of Horrors. So I watched a lot as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
That also was on a loop. That and I link them, even though they're not similar, but I link that in Clue because they're always on TV. Like, I swear they're always on TV at the same time.
No, they often did pair those together. I
swear I watched Clue and Little Shop of Horrors like as a double feature too many times. and of course Clue, it's more something you more appreciate as an adult.
Oh yeah, the humor but I remember watching when I was young.
The writing humor's good and slapstick humor balance out.
I used to really like the like Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yeah, I
loved that. And it was funny to me as a kid. It's funnier now as an adult.
Yeah, people give a shit, but I think it's one of my
I fucking love that movie.
When you compare it to some other stuff in its canon, it's not as strong, but it's still a solid comedy.
To me, like, I remember seeing Hot Shots when I was younger. Yeah. And
it's around the same time.
Yeah, it was around the same time. I liked Robin Hood Men in Tights more because I think it was more accessible to a kid.
Oh, absolutely.
The Hot Shots references and the Naked Gun movies. I used to watch Naked Gun movies.
I watched the hell of those too.
Even though as a child I did not understand a lot of the references. The slapstick stuff still resonated with me.
Slapstick works.
Yeah,
no matter
slapstick.
how old you are. Like,
Leslie
I watched the Three
Nielsen.
Stooges when I was a kid, yeah.
I loved Leslie Nielsen.
And then, of course, watching, like, some of the shows you just mentioned, I watched the TV cuts. So
Yeah.
a lot of even the more riskier jokes I didn't see until VHS, until DVD.
Some of the sex stuff that
like
mostly...
the nice beaver joke or the condom joke. And, yeah, when I would come out wearing the full-body condom.
Yes. I didn't get that. I did not get that joke.
I didn't even see that joke until I bought it on DVD.
I think the first time I ever saw it was probably on one of the like HBO or Showtime free weekends, and I did not. That joke went completely over my head. I did not understand.
Then it goes away. There's a whole other joke right afterwards.
Yeah. Well, like the chastity belt joke in Robin Hood. That I did not understand that when I was little.
Smith.
Yeah, they did not get that at all. So that's the thing. The stuff goes over kids' heads. It's not going to damage them. You're not gonna...
We are over time. I'm going to ask anyway. Any particular books or book series that you were just totally gaga for?
I started reading the Babysitters Club when I was like 6, and I was all about the Babysitters Club. That's a huge nostalgia factor for me. The Scary Story,
Scary Story Still in Dark?
Yeah, I have
that
my...
Goosebumps, that was my
well,
growing up.
I skipped Goosebumps. I went straight to...
Right to Fear Street? Or
Fear Street, The Babysitter. My parents would buy the packs of books at Costco. And they used to buy packs of books...
Stein and Pike, back and forth.
And they would just like shove them at my brother and I when we went to our cabin. And so I started reading R.L. Stein, Christopher Pike when I was about 6 or 7, and then graduated Stephen King pretty quickly. Because I was a weird kid.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
But Stephen Gamble inspired artwork.
As we point something that no one else can see, but
I'll take a picture of it. We can put it up. So those were some of my I was really into those when I was younger. How about you?
Besides Goosebumps, I did read a lot of stuff I read was a little older stuff. Like I read a lot of the Hardy Boys. My grandparents are buying me those books, so I read all the older ones. I didn't like the ones that were coming out then.
Yeah. Encyclopedia Brown.
Yep, that was actually
on
my list there. I read the hell of Encyclopedia Brown.
I
and
love
other stuff
Encyclopedia
from,
Brown.
Donald Sobel.
Yeah.
I think it was his pen name anyway.
Yeah.
Because the person writing, the people writing Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew were all pen names.
Right, yeah, because it was a group of...
Yeah, it's like, I think it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Who's right? Who the name was something Dixon. And then I read a lot of like Beverly Cleary, like
and Ramona Quimby, age 8, Henry Higgins.
I never read that one, but I read a lot of Roald Dahl.
Yeah, Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl. Matilda. I loved Matilda, and the BFG.
Yes,
loved the BFG.
I like that movie too. Before Spielberg.
I still haven't seen that. I need to.
And then Where the Red Fern Grows, I read a lot as a kid. To be fair, I read that a lot for school.
Yeah,
but I did read it again and again.
Treasure Island. I loved Treasure Island.
The cut ones that we were talking about.
Right.
For that one.
I read that book so many times. I think I wore my copy to pieces. How many times I read that book? I was obsessed with pirates for a while. I wanted to learn all about them, and I found them very romantic, and now I realize that was not the right impression I should have had of pirates. But again, as a kid, they're swashbuckling, and there was a few female pirates like Anne Bonny, and I was really into the idea of a lady pirate. I thought that was cool. Feminism, even then.
Always.
Always.
But that's essentially everything I had on my list. I just wanted to. I'm not going to talk about it, but it's like just to follow up continuity wise.
Yeah.
Earlier in the podcast, I mentioned like 2 movies. One was the beginning of the transition, one being the end. The beginning being Jurassic Park, the end of the transition being Scream. 15 is kind of like where the change was.
Where the change happens.
Yeah, between Jurassic Park and Scream was the transition.
Did your voice change at the same time
Probably.
too? Nice. As you were screaming, it suddenly took on a new.
But I think I mentioned everything else here on my list besides a couple movies that like I saw as an adult that I thought I would like as a kid, like that I should have seen in the 80s, like Adventures of Babysitting. Somehow I completely missed that. And stuff that I saw then but haven't revisited. Like I loved in theaters The Adventures of Pippi Longstocking in '88, like King Ralph and
King Ralph. Like that. I loved King Ralph.
All I have are my fleeting memories of being like 8 and watching them.
Yeah.
So I have no idea how good they are at this point.
I have a feeling
don't want to revisit.
You're almost afraid to ruin the nice memories you have of some of these movies because they. Like King Ralph's one, other than I think John Goodman will hold up. I don't know if the movie itself will hold up. I haven't seen it since I was a kid either.
Like that and there's a couple other things I didn't write down on my list that like came out around then.
That
I remember seeing because we went like every week. My grandparents. So we saw like so much stuff. Like we were seeing Ghost Dad.
I used to love Ghost Dad.
That.
You can't like that anymore.
A lot of stuff in the late '80s, early '90s that like we'd go every week and watch. That I can't think of titles now, but someone said like, "Oh yeah, I remember seeing that once and liking it then."
And a lot of the family shenanigans, the kind of
Mom, Dad, Save the World. Stupid since like '95, but stuff like that. So like, it's probably really bad.
But at the time, it was fun.
I remember the other thing I was saying about that I saw as an adult that I loved as a kid was I think it's called The Intruders. It's a Joe Dante movie about going to space.
I don't know if I ever saw that. Last Starfighter.
I haven't seen that.
Bob, that's up your alley. And the mouse movie.
Great Mouse Detective or Stuart Little?
Ralph, was that his name? Ralph?
Oh yeah, I have vague
with his little motorcycle.
I remember that now. Yeah,
there was books as well. Yeah, there was books, but there was some movies that aired on like Saturday morning television.
Yeah, I think they're like BBC adaptations or something.
And they're so cute. And I remember watching the crap out of those as a little kid on specifically Saturday morning television. And he had his cute little motorcycle, and he'd ride around, and he had a little helmet.
But like Mice and Roald Dahl, we have The Witches, which I watched when I was a kid. Angelica Houston.
Yes, Angelica Houston. And the book is great.
The book's great, yeah. The book's even more snarky and mean.
I mean, his books were...
Yeah.
They were not nice. They were not meant to be nice either. Like, and that's kind of why I liked them. Because you could tell that this guy... He wasn't trying to pander, which a lot of children's literature kind of talks down to kids in a lot of ways, and this guy was just like, nope.
I'm telling you the story, and if the kids like it, the kids like it.
Exactly.
This happens to feature a 5-year-old as the main character.
Right, but her parents are shits, and
he directly says so. Too.
Yeah.
It doesn't like, and it's something you don't see often, like, no, your elder son's fucking idiots.
Yeah. Like, just puts it out, and you got to appreciate that. So, like, they're horrible human beings.
The adults in a lot of his stuff are awful. Like Charlie and Chocolate Factory.
Not great. Not great. And even the ones that are good, like, you've got, in the buckets in the sequel, you've got the grandparents who have their own issues. They won't get out of bed, and there's a lot of kind of...
Don't consider that Grandpa Joe not getting out of bed until he has something to live for.
Yeah, but it's.
Oh, I can go to Chocolate Factory. I'm okay.
We're good.
I totally don't need to work.
No. Her family's trying to support 4 grown adults who won't get out of bed, but that's
but still
fine.
have money for cigarettes and everything.
Yeah.
But
anyway.
Anyway, we are well over time. But
okay.
I'm gonna put it up as it is. We're gonna be an hour and 50 minutes this time. I don't want to go through and edit this.
No. And congratulations, everyone! You met my cat.
Yeah. If you are listening to this, you haven't listened to this before. We do try and keep it to around 90 minutes. I usually edit it down, but this time we're going a little longer without Cody.
It's because Kim can't stop talking.
So thank you for listening. We are City of Geek. I'm Bob.
I'm Kim.
Find us at cityofgeek.com, at Facebook, Twitter, on YouTube. I'm posting the podcast up on YouTube if people like to do it that way. We are on iTunes, SoundCloud. However you found us, thank you for finding us, and hopefully some listeners or people just don't know us in real life. That'd be great.
But those of you who do know us in real life, thank you. And if I said something bad about you, I probably meant it.
And we're going to skip talking about things we've seen recently. Besides that, we did see End of the Apocalypse the other day. And
we
highly
did.
recommended. Reviews coming up soon for that. Thank you. Have a great night. And go watch some children's stuff.
Yeah.